Hi, everyone. Thanks for watching. This video is to show you how to find U.S. Census records for your ancestors. Censuses were taken every 10 years, beginning in 1790, and they continue through today. You may remember in 2020, there was a census taken in the United States. And however, they are only published online through 1950. All of the US Census records after that are private and not accessible online, but you can get everything else from 1950 back to 1790 online. And the censuses from 1790 to 1840 were only head of household censuses. So they only listed the head of the household, and there were only statistics for who else was in the household, how many women, how many children, and what ages. So they're helpful for some purposes, but they are not helpful in identifying children. Starting in 1850, they took down the name of everyone in the household, even visitors. The US censuses are published on many different websites, and we're going to use Family Search today because then you can attach the censuses that you find directly to your ancestors on Family Tree. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And I guess I need to pull up. Okay. And we are going to go first to Family Search. FamilySearch.org. And next you are going to click on Search and Records. From here, you want to scroll down a little bit because you want to choose the specific census that you want to search in. So whichever census you find is missing for the people that you're researching that hasn't been found yet, it's not in the sources, that's the census you want to find. So you're going to go into Browse All Collections, and I just like to type in United States Census, and it's going to give you a list of all of the US censuses. And you see we talked about starting in 1790, and then every 10 years, there's a census available all the way up through 1950, which I think the 1950 was actually popped up first. So we're going to go to the 1910 census and search for my ancestor, Paul Scherbel. So the first thing you want to try is just put their name in and see if you can find them. Now I have an uncommon name, so I don't need to put a place, but you might need to. There are other options for searching. I usually like to open this up, and you can put in a birth. If you click on birth, it gives you an option to put in birthplace and a range for their birth year. You can add other people who might be in the household to help you narrow down. And you can also use this country or location field to limit your searches, for instance, to if you know that they lived in Utah, for instance, then you could limit the search to just Utah, so that's the only people that pop up from your search are going to be people who are living in Utah at that time. So mine happens to be living in Utah. I know that, so I can do that. I can put that search parameter in. So then we're going to go ahead and search. And if you didn't already sign in, it will ask you to sign in. And he is the only Paul Scherbel in Utah. Now, if I had not put Utah, we'll search without that parameter, then you'll notice that it's going to give me the actual person who this is my ancestor, and then some people who have a similar last name. And so it's actually a pretty smart search that it will give you some options that aren't exactly what you put in, but are close. And so if the name was spelled wrong, then you can still find it. So let's say you have found the right census record. I like to open it in a new tab. I might have done that too fast. You can right click on it and say open in a new tab. I open almost everything in a new tab. When you get to the index, this is the index page for the census for that particular census entry. And it tells you all this information that has been indexed for Paul Scherbel. And then these are other people, if you keep scrolling down, that were in the household. And I don't actually love the view that Family Search gives here, but it's good enough. You're always going to want to open and look at the actual record, because they don't pull out everything there is to know about that person that was recorded. So you want to open it in a new tab and actually scroll in, zoom in, and see more. So I'm just going to show you as an example. The 1910 census gives you their name, their relationship to the head of the household, personal description, their gender, their race or color, their age, whether or not they're married or divorced or widowed. And you'll notice here it says like which, it indicates which marriage. Like, so if you've been married once, it's M1. If it's your second marriage, it's M2. So that's good information to have, how many years you've been married here. This, I love this column. This is maybe there might be one other census that offers this, but it's how many children did the mother have? Like how many did she bear? And then how many are still living? So that's really good information. This is where that person was born, which state, and then which state their father was born, which state their mother was born in, what language they speak, and what their occupation is. So if we scroll down to my ancestor, Paul, he's down here. I missed him. Here he is, Paul Scherbel. He was a roomer, so he's not actually related to the head. He was just lodging with them. He's male, white, 17 years old, and single. He was born in Wisconsin, and his parents were both born in Germany. He speaks English, and he's working as a clerk at the time for a soda water fountain. So all good information to have about your ancestor that will add to what you know about them. Okay, so what if you didn't find your ancestor that easily? See, mine was pretty easy. Let's say no options came up, because sometimes their names were spelled wrong in the census, or there really just wasn't a like particular correct spelling of the name, and whoever was taking the census door to door was writing it down. They are the ones who chose how to spell it. So, or when it was indexed, it also might have been spelled wrong. So there's something called wildcards. What I like to do, so you can do wildcards anywhere in Family Search, anywhere in the field. So for instance, I could put a wildcard if I thought like some of the letters in between maybe were misspelled, if the name was such that was a common or could have been a common problem, then I could put a wild card there. I often like to just put, especially if I'm having a real hard time finding them, I just put the first letter of their name and put an asterisk. Your asterisk is your wild card, and that means it's going to bring up entries that start with the first name P, and with P Scherbel. But I'm also going to do wild cards in the last name. SCH is a sh sound, but so is SH. So I could try that, or I could just take it all out and put a wild card and try to capture all of it. I find that vowels are often things that, misspelled. And so I'll often take out vowels. There's lots of different ways that you can think of to use the wild cards. I mean, you could really, if it gets down to it, you can just do PS and find everybody. And if you have more information about that person, like where they were living and about when they were born, then this kind of search can make sense, because it will help you pull up the right entry. But I'm going to do just the vowels in this case, and we're going to search that. And so now we see, oh, look at this, Paul Scherbel. That's like a different way to spell Scherbel, that maybe this person's actually, a Scherbel, and that his name was just spelled that way. We've got Schwerbel here, Shorbel. So you can tell these may or may not be people who are actually related to me, but it's interesting that it will pull up those possibilities, and my ancestor at some point might be spelled that way. So that's how you use wildcards. Another useful thing is to use the birthplace if you know for sure that they were born in a particular state. You don't want to get too specific, just put the state. And then a birth year can also really help. So if you know they were born in this is the 1910 census, so they would have had to have been born before then. If you know they were born in 1893, then you might put 1890 to 1895, just because sometimes ages in the census weren't exact. Sometimes people didn't know exactly how old they were, and then search with that. And if you get an error like this, sometimes you just want to search again and it'll actually come up. So these are our only two entries that that satisfy, what we put in over here in the fields. So you can play with the wildcards, the birthplace, the birth year, as well as adding fathers, mothers, spouses, or other persons that you think could have been in the census with them, and the location, if you want to. Those are all good ways to get at your entry. And then once you do find it, back here on the index page, this is already attached to my ancestor, but it will have an option to attach over here if it's not already attached. So I will stop. So thanks for listening in today, and stay tuned for the next video. Hope you have a great day and give it a try.